Hello. Um, okay, so we are back with the fourth one of the Sailor Scout Devil Fruit series. This one is going to be about Sailor Pluto and Sailor Saturn. So I have back here, I have the manga that have Sailor Pluto on it, and with her I have Celebi because Sailor Pluto is the Sailor Scout of Time, and Celebi is the first kind of Pokemon that we meet that can manipulate time. I think throughout the rest of the series, we have seen a few other. There may have been another legendary that, yeah, there's another legendary that manipulates time. You know, Dialga and Palkia, time, space, yada, yada, yada. But Celebi was the first one. And then we also have Sailor Saturn's manga over here with Marshadow. Um, I will kind of explain the Marshadow a little bit more, I guess, when I get to Sailor Saturn. But Marshadow is a Pokemon that is very, it's a dark fighting type, but it's also, or no, it's a ghost fighting type, I think. I don't remember. It's one of the two. It's a fighting type, but it's like a ghost or a dark fighting type. And it's this shadow manipulation Pokemon. It pops in and out of shadows and everything, and it's a very it seems to be a fairly dreaded Pokemon in the movie that it's introduced in. uh, and unfortunately Sailor Saturn is kind of a very dreaded Sailor Scout, and I'll get to that when I get to some of the things that go into her. So up first, though, we have Sailor Pluto. Sailor Pluto is actually the sixth Sailor Scout that we meet in the series. We meet, of course, Sailor Moon is the first one, and then we meet the four inner scouts, and then we meet Sailor Pluto in the second season of the anime and second season of Crystal, and then and the corresponding section of the manga and the second arc of the manga. So we introduced to her. Her name is Sailor Pluto. Trista Mayu is her English name, and then Setsuna Mayu is her, Japanese name. She is the Sailor Scout that is in charge of guarding the Gate of Time. Unfortunately, she kind of can't really leave the gate, although those rules seem to get bent a little bit throughout the course of the series. But for the most part, she's the only Sailor Scout, I think, that survived from the Silver Millennium with all of her memories intact. She is, because she was guarding the Gate of Time at the time when the Silver Millennium fell. In the history of Sailor Moon, blah, 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 1,000 years ago, Silver Millennium fell. Um, on the moon and everything. And she was one of the I think the only Sailor Scout that actually survived, simply because of the fact of she was outside of kind of she watches over time, but she doesn't really interfere with it very often. This is changes a bit later on in the series. We see this. Um, but her god symbols are, of course, time, space to a degree, but mostly just time. Sound, she kind of has a bit of sound power, which I'll get to when I get to the main attack that we see her use. And she also has Pluto is, of course, the planet that she represents. Now, Pluto in Roman mythology is the equivalent of Hades in Greek mythology, the god of the dead. Um, but Pluto, as a Sailor Scout, represents time. And there's kind of a bit of a flip up there, I would say, because Kronos is kind of more the one that is associated with the planet of Saturn. But there's kind of two things that kind of go with Kronos. The first kind of one is Kronos, who is the head Titan, the father of the gods of Zeus and his brothers and sisters. He is the god of the Titan of Time, is usually his dominion that he tends to represent. But he was the god Titan of Time, but he was also kind of a representation of the Titan of Death. I don't 100% know why they had Sailor Pluto be the one that represented time, but they did, and I'm fine with it. I was just, later on when you kind of learn the Greek gods, you're like, wait a second. When you learn the Greek and Roman gods, you're like, wait a second. This Pluto, Saturn, time, death. Okay, whatever. I don't have a problem with it in regards to the context of the series, but I don't know. Maybe they just gave it to her as the last because she was the last Sailor Scout in the solar system, so they gave her the essence of that. The weapons or the items that she tends to have is, of course, she guards the Gate of Time. which at one point the Sailor Scouts have to, in the second season and the second arc of the manga, they have to go through the gate of time in order to go to the future, and then they have to go back through the gate to go to the past. Time travel is an aspect time travel is kind of an aspect throughout Sailor Moon in and of itself, but it's mostly prevalent in season 2 and the second arc of the manga, and then it kind of is kind of continual throughout the rest of it in regards to mostly with Sailor Mini Moon or Rini or Chibiusa, whichever one you want to refer to as, is usually where that came into play because she's from the future, but she goes to the past, and then she goes back to the future, and then she goes back to the past, and back and forth all the time. It's like, kid, pick a time frame and stick with it. But I mean, if you could have time travel, I mean, if you could go back and forth, backwards and forwards in time, I mean, Doctor Who, you know, explanation right there, Doctor Who. Just go fix certain things, go meet family you didn't get the chance to meet, or go see different sites throughout history. Just don't blow anything up that wasn't supposed to blow up. They don't quite do that with Sailor Moon, but they do mess with time a bit with that, with between with the time gate and with the other entities, because the villains kind of time travel as well in that season. But then she also has, to go with the gate, she has time keys that she uses. She uses them a bit, and then Rini is Sailor Mini Moon is also the one that uses them at times. You have to use a chant with the key in order to activate it that allows you to travel, backwards and forwards through time if you're not Sailor Pluto, because she has free access to the gate. The other thing that she has is she also has her Garnet Orb, which is just this heart Garnet Orb. It goes with the 3 treasures that are connected to Neptune has one, that was her mirror, and then Uranus has one, that's her sword. Pluto's is the Garnet Orb, and then she also has her staff that she uses it with, that it goes on top of. She uses the orb to do her attacks. Her main attack is called Pluto Deadly Scream, which is where the sound comes in. Also, it involves death in that way as well. So I'm like, Pluto and death kind of go a little bit more for that, but they gave her time, so blah, blah, blah. What she does for her Pluto Deadly Scream attack is she converts a ton of energy around, concentrates it around the top of her staff, around the orb, and then she releases it that way, and that's her Pluto Deadly Scream attack. The other ability that she has is she also has the ability to stop time. And in doing this, it costs her life to do it. But if you've watched Sailor Moon, you know that the Sailor Scouts get reincarnated various times throughout Sailor Moon, because they die and then they're brought back by the power of the crystal, by the Silver Imperial Crystal that Sailor Moon has, which I will go over when I do the next video about Sailor Moon and Sailor Mini Moon and Tuxedo Mask. But time stop allows Pluto to stop time. We see her, I believe she only uses it once in the actual series, or in the original anime. I don't know if it's actually something that she does use in Crystal and in the manga, but I know she uses it in the actual anime, in the original anime. And she stops time in order to allow Uranus and Neptune to bypass this very deadly trap. And she sacrifices her own self in order to do it. And it does kill her. Pluto has actually died. She dies, they have her die once in the anime, and that's when, in the original anime, and that's when she stops time. She does die. And then in the manga, she actually dies at one point when she is trying to protect, when she's trying to save Sailor Mini Moon, Rini. From when when Rini is kind of possessed and brainwashed, which I'll go over when I get to Rini. But there's she's died a few times. All the Sailor Scouts have died at some point. It's just kind of, they've all died at some point. I think the one that's actually died the most is actually, I think, Serena, but that's just more out of the fact of she's the princess. She can come back to life, and she's the strongest, but the others come back to life too, because she can't be alone. Because she will never accomplish anything else, because she doesn't like to study. But so those are her abilities. The time stop it sacrifices herself in order to do it, but she comes back, of course. And in regards to the devil fruits, that I thought that would go very well with her. The kind of the first one that I thought of is there's the main one there that we'll get to, and that's actually the second devil fruit I'm going to talk about. But the first one kind of goes along with the Pluto Deadly Scream, which is actually a non-canon devil fruit from, I think it's the first One Piece movie, which I haven't seen. I've seen reviews of it, but I haven't seen it. It is the Goe no Mi, or the Gao Gao no Mi, the Scream fruit that El Drogo has. El Drogo, not that interesting of a character from the little bit that I've heard about him. The Devil Fruit, on the other hand, it allows him to send out large amounts of sound, very concentrated amounts of sound from his voice. And I mean, like, I mentioned this a little bit when I talked about that musical devil fruit that a Apu has, that Scratchard Apu has. In the previous video when I talked about Sailor Neptune, that it affects things. He's able to actually, Apu is able to, he makes a certain noise and it will actually affect you. Like if you get hit by like the noise of him making like the drum sound or whatever, it will actually cause like an explosion or something like that. In this case with El Drogo's fruit, with the Scream fruit, it is literally just a blast of pure sound coming at you. And I would assume that he would be able to control like the levels of like how strong and how high or loud or whatever the sound is, with enough practice. He might be able to just do like little tiny little bits where if you have the right amount of practice with any devil fruit, you can do a lot of things with it. But like he could just like release small amounts of sound. But the main way that we see him use it apparently is he just has large, gigantic blasts of sound flying away from him at his opponent, with no regard for anything around him. But then so we get that. Not too much with that. We only see it in the first One Piece movie that they did. The next one is, of course, the main devil fruit that would fit the best with Sailor Pluto is, of course, the Toki Toki no Mi, the time fruit, that Kozuki Toki has. We're introduced to her in the Wano arc. We find out that time travel is a thing in One Piece, and that you can only travel forward in time, not back, only forward. So we have that. Pluto can go both directions. She can go forward in time, and she can go backwards in time, but she apparently can't go back to like certain points in time, because she kind of goes back and forth between like the past and between like the present and the future in Sailor Moon, but she doesn't go to the past. So it's kind of a weird explanation of how does that work. I don't know. Manga logic. But Kozuki Toki, or I think it's Amasuki Toki is her original name. Before she marries Odin, she's the mother of Momo and Hiyori and Wano and everything. We meet her throughout the course of the flashback. We find out that she had the power of a time travel devil fruit from Kinemon. Shortly after Luffy and the crew, Luffy and his part of the crew, arrive in Wano, they learn about this. And we learn that time travel is a thing in One Piece, and that would be the devil fruit that would work best for for Sailor Pluto, because she's the Sailor Scout of Time. We don't really know any attacks that would go along with the time fruit. I guess maybe like the best way that it would be to like have like set up an attack, I guess, would be to I don't know what would be a good way of doing this. I don't know, like you set an explosion and then you like hop forward so many minutes into the future after the explosion has gone off, so you're not affected by the explosion. Or I don't know, sneak past certain parts of security, which you could just do anyway if you have enough, cat burglary skills like Nami. And then you could, I guess get behind certain alarms or something like that, trigger an alarm, jump ahead of the alarm after it goes off, you sneak in when the rest of it's going on. But that just seems like a bit of a waste of the devil fruit. We don't know what the minimum amount of time forward, you would have to use for it, or how, what's the maximum that you can go. Like, is the maximum amount of time that you can go forward, 20, 30, 40, 70, 900, 1,000 years? So many other things we don't know. A lot of things we don't know about the time fruit, as has been stated by other people that have talked about it, but I would think that Toki seemed to have a fairly good grasp of it, and I would think that Trista, that Sailor Pluto would have a fairly good grasp of being able to figure out how to work the devil fruit as best as possible. The other devil fruit that I gave her that kind of goes along a little bit with this is that age devil fruit that Juri Bonnie has. Kind of fits a little bit better with two other characters, but I'll talk a little bit about it here, and then I'll talk it more with the other two characters that it would work with. Mostly just because like Bonnie can physically change her age, and that does kind of involve time, but you're kind of speeding up and slowing down and reversing the aging of your cells. So I would say that it kind of involves time, but not as much as obviously the actual time fruit devil fruit would. The other devil fruit that I gave Pluto, or that would work very well for Pluto, would be Pluto wants to be a fashion designer. That is Trista's dream, is to become a fashion designer. And given the amount of time that she's been the Sailor Scout of Time, she's been watching history. She's probably seen all these different fashion trends come and go, and fashion as it evolved over the decades and the centuries and everything. Like horrible fashion ideas, amazing fashion ideas. Just all the different ranges that she probably saw, and probably had ideas in her head of, well, I could draw that better than that person, or why in the world would you wear that? Or, like whatever, combination of things of, well, that's not bad, but if you put that outfit with this one over here, this decade, suit with like this decade suit or something like that, then maybe they would work better together. I don't know. That, we don't 100% know why she has that dream, but she has that dream. And the devil fruit that I said that I kind of put that would work the best for her, in my opinion, is the Fuku no Mi, or the Garb Jutsu, that Kinemon has. Kinemon's devil fruit, he doesn't know that it's a devil fruit right off the bat, of course, because in Wano they don't know about devil fruits, as I mentioned previously. And they just think it's a weird type of, ninjutsu. And Kinemon's ability is that he can turn inanimate objects, put this rock on your head, or put that stick or that leaf or something on your head, and I'll use my devil fruit power, and it'll turn it into whatever type of outfit he can imagine. Which is slightly overlooked, I think, for Kinemon, for the fact of considering all the different outfits that we see him make. Because when we first meet him, well, he's a head, but when we first, he's a little disembodied head that they have to put back together, but then he still has his devil fruit powers, and he gives Nami and Sanji and a bunch of these kids, all these kids and everything, nice coats and everything, so they're warm outside. He gives them coats and gloves. And in doing that, he would at least have to have some idea of what like a warm coat would look like. And the coats that he makes for them is okay. And then later on, not in Wano, but in Dressrosa, he makes clothes for him and Luffy and Frankie and Sanji and Zoro and such to run around in as their disguises. And the back part of the backfire of the outfit is that, like, if you take a piece of the outfit off, then it pops back into a rock. Like at one point we see Sanji take off the glove that was part of the outfit that he made for that Kinemon made for him, and pops it off, and it turns back into a rock. The coat is still there, but if he takes the coat off, then it turns back into a rock. And Kinemon at least has some basic understanding of what clothes at least would look good on a person, because he seems to pick something that fits with the person's personality most of the time. I mean, for God's sake, he made sure that Frankie still had his Speedo on in his suit, which is still weird, and probably could have done with covering him up more, but it's Frankie and it's One Piece and he's Frankie, and him and Kinemon are both perverts, so, there you go. As is Sanji. And a fair number of other characters in One Piece. So we have that. And then when they get to Wano, of course, we know that he has made different outfits for the rest of the crew. to give them, outfits as part of their disguise I'm assuming until they can get actual outfits. And we see him put, Nami and Sanji and Carrot and Chopper and Brooke into outfits that work for them, and they're outfits that fit them rather well. And I think that's slightly overlooked with Kanema, that he has to have some kind of a fashion sense or idea about clothing to make it work as well as he does. So you got to at least give him that much, because we don't know if it's like, oh, I'm going to picture clothes on you, but it's going to also shift based on your personality, or is it just whatever he thinks of. He gives Nami a very revealing ninja outfit, but it's Kanema, whatever. um I'll talk Pluto. At the Pluto, as I said, she just wants to be a fashion designer. We really don't. I don't think we see anything for like fashion designers in One Piece. The closest I think we get is like upscale shops and stuff like that we see. In Logtown we see that. In I think Dressrosa we see something like that where there's different fashions on the different islands. I think Trista would very much enjoy going around and like seeing all the different fashions on the different islands, and then combining different things, like some of the styles from Dressrosa, like the dresses that the women wear in Dressrosa, and then like some of the outfits from Wano for all intents and purposes, or like something else where it's like all these different outfits that she could come up with based on what she's seen in what she's seen on the different islands. That would be kind of interesting. It would be fun. Oh well. Oh, okay. So we do technically get like a fashion center because we have Papa Goo in on Fishbone Island. We have him with his his criminal line that he always has, that we see Nami in a fair amount of the see Nami in sometimes. So we have Papa Goo, but that's about the closest thing that we get to a fashion designer, I think. And like Kamey's kind of, I think, one of his models type thing, which is just kind of fun. So yeah, Trista, I think would do quite well at being like a fashion designer in the One Piece world. She can go and make like the very very interesting coats that the different captains and the admirals and vice admirals and everything get to wear. She could definitely give the Celestial Dragons a pointer or two about making their outfits look a lot less stupid. Moving on to Sailor Saturn. So Sailor Saturn is, of course, Hotaru Tomo. She is introduced in season 3 of the anime, of the original anime and of Crystal, and she's introduced in like the third arc of the manga. Her father is a doctor. Her mother is dead, unfortunately, for reasons that will kind of be gone over. And she is also possessed. Yeah. And this was not planned. I'm wearing a Harley Quinn shirt, and the person that's possessing Saturn is a homicidal maniac that wants to destroy Earth. Yeah, I'm like, okay, sweet girl with a homicidal thing inside of her. That's fun. Um, Pluto is notified as the Sailor Scout of death and destruction. Yeah, that's kind of coming from the fact that, Saturn is the, variation of Kronos in, it's usually referred to as Kronos in, Roman mythology. Um, and in regards to that, uh, Kronos was, he's a destructive god. He, killed his own father in order to take over the throne. He, was willing to destroy his own children and eat them and everything, for to stop the gods and such. And he ate 5 of his children, and then didn't get the last one there. Sorry, buddy. But he is, he's kind of the destruction and time is kind of his domain. Pluto, or Saturn, is the Sailor Scout of destruction, and in actuality she is kind of the Sailor Scout that is the most isolated out of all of them, because at least Pluto has the ability to, and I'll go over this a little bit more when I do like the discussions for the Sailor Scouts, but at least Pluto has the ability to watch the other Sailor Scouts, watch what they get to do. Saturn is basically just left in isolation, in sleep, until she is needed. And her job is basically, oh, a huge amount of destruction has happened on the Moon Kingdom, and our society is going to fall. and we're gonna die, but we need to take this other evil out with us. And we need to take this evil, this horrid thing down with us, or else it's gonna cause more problems. And her basic job is, okay, the queen woke me up. Now I have to destroy everything. That's basically what she does. It is Saturn's dominion to destroy, destruction, death. She, silence, nothing. And the end all be all type thing is what she can do. She has that type of power. And throughout the course of the third season and even in the manga, we see the fact that Uranus and Neptune do not want her to awaken, because if she awakens, then that is a bad thing, because she has the power to destroy everything, and they don't want that. But it's also the thing of when Saturn was reborn as Hotaru, um, she also ended up getting this other personality inside of her because of something that her father did. She had Saturn in her entire life. She was born with Sailor Saturn in her, which is kind of it's kind of a hidden personality that she does not know about, and she is actually the last Sailor Scout to awaken out of the Sailor Scouts from this solar system. Um, but what it happens is, when she's a kid, her father's lab is destroyed in an explosion because of reasons that involve an alien. And her father loses her mother. Her and her mother were there. And her mother dies, and she's close to death. And her father makes a deal with this entity, this, extraterrestrial entity that is evil. Basically, if I let you put this thing inside of my, the deity or the being tells him, if you let me put this thing inside of your daughter, I will prevent her from dying, but you have to serve me, and I basically get to possess you, but your daughter will not die. And her father, Professor Tomo, agrees to this. And, Saturn, Hotaru becomes kind of possessed. Well, she doesn't know that she's possessed. She just unfortunately becomes very ill a lot of the time as she grows up. And she doesn't have a very good relationship with anybody. She adores her father, but she doesn't have a good relationship with anybody, and besides her father, until she actually meets Sailor Mini Moon, until she meets Rini. And they don't go over this in the original animated series, as far as I'm aware, unless it was something that they cut from the original animated series, which is quite possible, but I don't know if it was in the original animated series. It's in the manga, and they have it in Crystal. Hotaru is technically a cyborg. So, Frankie, I found you a friend. I think Vegapunk would just have a fun time trying to research Hotaru. But the thing, one of the things, because she was possessed and everything, that Professor Tomo, combined with the new alien intelligence that was controlling his body, made fixed Hotaru's body, and she becomes kind of a cyborg. And it's she doesn't know that well, in the original series, she doesn't know why she keeps having these different fainting spells and feels weak all the time. It's because she technically has 3 different entities inside of her. She has her own mind and her own heart, and then she has Sailor Saturn, which is still dormant, and then she has this other being inside of her that is Sailor Pluto, or that is Mistress Nine, is what it's referred to as. And at one point, both in the original and in the manga and in Crystal, Mistress Nine comes out, and it's not good for Pluto, or it's not good for Saturn, for Hotaru. She becomes basically, Mistress Nine's job is to just erase Hotaru from her own body and take over the body, and she does. And then she's supposed to summon this, her master that's supposed to come and then destroy Earth. Got the course of the rest throughout the climax of the original anime, and I'm assuming Crystal does the same thing. And in the manga, the scouts defeat her. Serena defeats her, but it's not through actually killing her. It involves actually awakening Hotaru inside of her. And when I rewatched it, and I have some pictures from it. At one point, when Hotaru reawakens inside of Mistress Nine, she basically awakens her Sailor Saturn power at the same time. And because she wants to destroy Mistress Nine, so that way Mistress Nine cannot then use the rest of her power in order to destroy, Sailor Moon and her friend Rini and, the world, because, Hotaru is a very good person. She is just unfortunately very sick and has things that possess her. Um, her and Sailor Saturn kind of seem to merge at this point in time, but what ends up happening is um, she awakens she reawakens inside of her own body that is now possessed and looks like Mistress Nine, and she basically rips Mistress Nine apart. Yeah, she rips Mistress Nine apart. It's like, nope, I'm awake now. Bye. No more Mistress Nine. And and then she reforms. And that's she reforms, turns into Sailor Saturn, and then she blows herself up in order to destroy the thing that Mistress Nine summoned. Which then involves Serena basically diving into the, Sailor Moon using all of her power at that point in time, diving into the thing that has Saturn in it that she's trying to blow up, and saves her and brings her back as a baby. Okay, then. Even as a kid, I'm like, the frick did that happen? Magic. Anime magic. Magical Girl show. It works. It's fine. Everything is fine. The kid didn't die. But then, Hotaru is turned into a baby, and then her father is freed, and she gets to be raised by him again, but then she ends up getting her memories back later on, a little bit later on, and she gets turned back into her kind of, I would say middle school age. But then she still has her Sailor Saturn powers, and has control over them at this point in time. The two main attacks that she has are Silence Wall, which isn't really attack. She more uses it as a defense mechanism, where she holds up her scythe that she has. Her scythe is called her Silence Glaive, and she uses that to, block an attack that's coming at her. She usually has it shields her and anyone that's behind her. And then the other thing that she has, I think it's just called Silence Glaive Surprise, which I'm like, okay, that's a very odd name for a very deadly thing. And I think a better name for it would be like the double-edged sword, because in order to use this attack, she ends up killing herself. And she can take out an opponent, but she kills herself in the process. And that's not good. And it's what happens is she she almost uses it at one point in order to defeat not the boss that she kind of used it. Saturn kind of used that attack against Pharaoh 90, who was Mr. Nine's boss. And she kind of uses it there, but then Serena's able to save her. But then later on in the next, well, not the next season, but the season after that, there's a bit of an odd overlap there in regards to what happens, because they go a little bit out of the manga, but then come back and blah, blah, blah. But she ends up using it she almost uses it against one of the other opponents, and Sailor Moon actually stops her from using it, because she knows that if Hotaru uses it, not only will she kill the enemy, she will kill herself. And Rini doesn't want to lose her best friend again. So those are the two things that kind of, quite a few things actually that go with Sailor Saturn. I'll go into a slightly more in-depth history of her in the review, but I kind of you need a little bit of this to understand why I gave her these different devil fruits. So the first devil fruit that I gave her is actually the Yomi Yomi no Mi, or the Revive fruit that Brooke has. Because, Brooke's dead and he came back, and Sailor Pluto or Sailor Saturn kind of does this a few times. As Hotaru, she, back in the Silver Millennium, as Saturn, she, used her power, destroyed everything, and then she got reincarnated and reborn as Hotaru. And then as Hotaru, as a little kid, she almost died, and then she's the cyborg, and then she still sacrifices herself again in order to become, kind of dies again when she's taken over by Mistress Nine, and then forces her way back to stop Mistress Nine, and then becomes Sailor Saturn, and then destroy Pharaoh 90, and then, almost dies again, or kind of dies, but is brought back by Sailor Moon, and then she gets to be a kid. She's a little kid, and then she's a baby, and then she turns into a little kid, and then she kind of turns into like a preteen / teenager, and then she gets to grow up normal. But she kind of gets a lot of, okay, coming back now, coming back now, coming back now, type thing for that. Kind of like what Brooke has a little bit, with Brooke being able to leave his body and then come back. Also, Brooke can mess with souls. Hotaru can just kill you, if she so chooses. The other, Hotaru actually has quite a few devil fruits. I think the other one that has like this many devil fruits, or the other one that has like close to this many devil fruits, is actually Sailor Moon. But the other one that I gave her is the Buki Buki no Mi, the arms fruit that Baby 5 has, which, Baby 5 has the ability to turn into all these different weapons and everything. She turns in, she has like where she turns into a scythe, she uses, blades and everything, just guns, flamethrower, blah, 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 blah. She also turns into a freaking missile bomb type thing at one point, and she blows up, and she's fine, but everything around her is kind of just nothing. So that kind of goes with the fact of, okay, Sailor Saturn's going to destroy everything now. It's kind of where I put that in. Yeah, that's yeah. The other one that I kind of gave her a little bit is the Bari Bari no Mi, or the barrier fruit that Bartolomeo has. And yeah, let's give Bartolomeo, this swearing pirate, does not give a flying flip. He will kill you if you make him angry enough, or if you hurt something or insult something that he cares about. Particularly if that thing has a straw hat, or is a straw hat. His, the Bari Bari no Mi allows him to, cross his fingers and then make different barriers. And, Hotaru, her silence wall kind of works as a barrier against attack. His, his attack, his fruit will allow him to block attack. So kind of that a little bit. The other one that I really gave her that is kind of a little bit why Marshadow's over here is the Yami Yami no Mi, or the dark fruit that Blackbeard has. Don't like Blackbeard, but the fruit that the devil fruit, in regards to what it can do for being a darkness fruit, is actually quite cool. And as we find out, from Blackbeard, he does feel the pain of the attacks. It's just he has a very high pain threshold, and he can take a lot of damage. And in regards to that, we know that Sailor Saturn, all the Sailor Scouts can take, sometimes a bit more damage depending on what it is that they're fighting, or, how strong they already are. Because all the Sailor Scouts have taken quite a bit of damage throughout the entire course of the series. That if they were normal humans would definitely have killed them, but they're not normal. But Saturn, kind of, takes quite a bit of damage and everything, and can release quite a bit of damage, because, Blackbeard will, suck in a whole bunch of stuff and then release a ton of his, a whole bunch of debris, and then release the ton of debris as a way of just causing a large amount of damage. And, Saturn can do, kind of like that with her, just destroy everything in its path. Kind of like, the bomb, like I mentioned with the Baby 5. The other one that I did kind of mention that would kind of go with her, that I mentioned a tiny bit with Pluto, was the Jewelry Bonnie's Devil Fruit, because we see her, she does age up and down a little bit throughout the course of the series. She doesn't ever turn into like a really old lady or anything like that. In regards to like Saturn doesn't ever turn into like a really old lady, but we see her as a baby. We see her as like we're introduced to her. She's like a teenager, like, 15, 14, 15 range. And then, she then becomes a baby, and, she ages up a little bit as Mr. Sign, and then she ages back down to a baby because she dies, and then, brings back, and then blah, blah, blah. So she kind of does age a bit, and then at one point she kind of like rapidly ages at one point, simply just because of, power, and they need her for other reasons, because the other Sailor Scouts are going to need help, and they need Pluto, and they need Saturn, and they're going to need all the Scouts together to make this work. And so she has that. The fruit that I gave her in regards to her dream, Hotaru's dream, is that she actually wants to become a doctor, because throughout the course of the original anime, she's sick quite a bit. She thinks that she has an illness and everything, and her father, is trying to find a way to treat it. Her father is possessed by the thing that allowed him to allow something to possess his own daughter. But the deal was made out of love because he just lost his wife. He didn't want to lose his daughter as well. So you can kind of see where that is, and we see that a little bit. And he does still, the part of Professor Tomo that is still there does love his daughter. And at one point, we actually see him be able to fight against the thing that's possessing him, and he, regrets everything that he did. That involves, that's like way at the end of the third season. In the anime, I don't know if they actually touch on that in the manga or not. I don't remember. But Hotaru had been sick so much, and she didn't like being sick, and she didn't like that it made her miss out on a lot of things. It also made her quite a bit different from the other kids because they just didn't like being around her. But wants to be a doctor, and as I said with Amy, wants to be a doctor. The Ape Ape no Mi, the Op fruit that Law has, would be quite good for her to have as well, for Hotaru. And in regards to that, she wants to become a doctor. She would be quite happy with doing all the research required to become a doctor, go through all the classes and everything, all the training to become a doctor. And she would probably, just like Amy, would do quite well with the devil fruit. Now, I didn't do this with Pluto, but I'm just going to say it now. The two that I would definitely give Pluto are definitely the Time devil fruit and the Garb devil fruit. Those would definitely be what I would give Pluto. If she was in the One Piece world. We don't know where the time fruit is yet. We don't know. Maybe Toki still is alive. Maybe she's not. We don't know what happened to the devil fruit. If it is still around, where is it? We don't know that. Or at the time that I'm making this video, we don't know that. But what is, so we have that. Kinemon obviously still has the Garb fruit because he's still alive. But then we have Hotaru. I would give her, for the definite ones that I would give her, I would say the arms fruit, and then the Ape no Mi, which would kind of, you would think would be like that's kind of a contrasting thing, contrasting, devil fruits to give to the kid. But I would give them to her because the arms fruit, she would be able to use against the enemies. And in Sailor Moon, a lot of the enemies are artificial. They're not like actually a real person that got turned into something bad. That is the case in some of the enemies that they fight, but most of the time it's just something that it was just artificially created and it's not actually alive. It's just this thing that was made to do this one task, and then it's, the Sailor Scouts just destroy it and then it's gone. And, so her being able to have that power to just, okay, time to destroy stuff, turns her arms into blades and just beats the crap out of whatever it is that she has to fight. But then the other side of that is, as with having the Ape no Mi, she would then be able to help her friends or help the citizens or help the person that got hurt, and be able to use that to help them in regards to, okay, let's just make sure that nothing is bleeding. That's not, nothing's bleeding. Everything's where it's supposed to be. Nothing's hurt. Let's get you all better and everything. And she probably use it the way that Law does it, with manipulating the battlefield and everything. With okay, the enemy's over here. They're gonna attack my friend here. Let's flop. Make the enemy attack itself. I don't know if Law ever did that in the actual series. I'm sure he's done it at some point in his life where it's just enemy fires an attack. Law is standing here. The attack is going to hit Law. When it's right before it hits Law, he's and room and swap. And then the enemy gets hit by their own attack. I'm sure Law has done that at some point. I don't know if we've actually seen him do that in the manga or in the anime. If we have, then I just haven't seen it yet. But that just seems like something that Law would come up with. Let's just make the enemy attack itself. Okay, that works. I would think that would work quite well. If you can time it right, I would assume so. It depends on how good you are at timing out an opponent's attacks. I don't think you'd be able to make Luffy attack himself because that would just not work so well. But if you have something else that is actually a long range attack that has to hit you, then that would probably adjust the battlefield that way, or flop the attack, I guess, would also work too. But I'm not sure on that. So those would be what I would give to them. Saturn in the Sailor Moon world. Mm, she'd probably make quite a good student for either Crocus or Dr. Kureha, I would say. So she could be like a friend of Chopper. You know, she's kind of an outcast like Chopper is, so I think her and Chopper would get along quite well. And you know, she'd be those very polite girl that like learns from Crocus or learns from Dr. Kureha type thing. Like, yeah, Kureha needs a new student. Let's give her Hotaru. She would be quite good at that. Her and Amy can, and you know, her and Mercury, her and Amy can go and be with Kureha for a while. That'll be good. They can learn there. Um, they can learn how to, you know, treat all those weird diseases that are in One Piece. That would be good for them, I'd say. So those would be the best places I would say for that. Pluto can go be a fashion designer and come up with amazing fashions for all over One Piece, for all over the, you know, their world, and then, you know, Saturn can, you know, she can, you know, and then Saturn can become a doctor and everything. I think having Law meet Kureha would be very interesting because him and Chopper kind of get along a little bit. They get along a little bit. Kureha, I think, would not take any of Law's crap. I'd so love to see have to watch Kureha and Law interact. That would be so funny. Or even like Crocus and Kureha. I want to see Crocus and Kureha interact. That would be fun. I mean, you know, they're both in the Grand Line as far as we're aware. You know, he could hop on, you know, a boat, you know, sail past, you know, Little Garden, sail to Drum Island, go there. I'm sure Crocus has been to Drum Island at some point in time. Maybe he has met Kureha. Maybe he knew Hero Luck. I don't know. Probably not. I think if Crocus had known Hero Luck, he may have tried to like heal Hero Luck from his thing, but he may have known Kureha at some point. She's like 141 or 42, something like that at this point in time. You know, her and Crocus, you know, they could have met. Maybe he studied under her at some point. We don't know how long she's been a doctor. You know, that would be kind of fun. But you know, that's what we get for those two characters. The next video would be Sailor Moon, Mini Moon, and Tuxedo Mask. And I'm gonna do Tuxedo Mask and Mini Moon, and then depending on how long that is, Sailor Moon might get her own video, but it'll be a little bit shorter than normal. But that would be a very long video, depending on how much I talk about the other. So that's what I got for you for this video. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Holding you close and giving you kisses aren't the only symbols of love. Watching over someone from afar is a kind of love too.